You're listening to a Roddenberry podcast.
Mission Log Prodigy, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. Episode 33, A Tribble Called Quest.
Welcome into another episode of Mission Log Prodigy, Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. I'm Marina Kravchuk.
And I am Charlene Schmidt. Just like our flagship Mission Log podcast, each week here on Mission Log Prodigy, we discuss each and every episode of this animated series. We discover what makes each of them special, and we see if there's any morals, meanings, or messages that we've learned.
This week, we rock out to A Tribble Called Quest. Please remember that Mission Log Prodigy is an in-depth review podcast, so if you have not seen the episode yet, you may want to put us on pause, watch the episode, and then come back to hear us talk all about it.
Mission Log Prodigy is produced for YouTube and as a regular podcast, so please be sure to engage the like and the share buttons and subscribe and write us a nice review. Just please do all of the things. It helps the algorithm do the algorithmic thing. And you can also follow us on the socials. You can find us on X, formerly known as Twitter, at ML_Prodigy, and now on Instagram at Mission Log Prodigy, all one thing. And that way you get our latest news, updates, fun stuff. We try to do a little bit of everything.
Yeah. Before we jump into the recap, let's remind everybody why our podcast is so unique. We want to hear from the cadets, the younger Prodigy fans out there who would like to share their thoughts on the show. Right now, we would like to hear what our cadets thought about Cracked Mirror. So please record a voice message and tell us the following. What is your first name and age? Did you like the episode? What was your favorite part? And what did you learn? Then send your file to missionlog-prodigy@roddenberry.com, and please make sure it reaches our inbox no later than October 5th.
We've got one more thing before we jump into the episode, and that is, of course, to talk about the giveaway we're running, where you can win all sorts of cool prizes, such as maybe a complete set of Prodigy cast fan set pins. Every single one of them. That's pretty cool. And that's just one of the prizes that you can win. Head over to the link in the description of this episode for the link to enter. And speaking of which, you're going to want to stay tuned to the end of this video because we're going to have another one of our secret codes that you can input there. And you're only going to find it here. So with all of that said, let's kick things off for this show by answering the same questions we ask of our cadets. So Marina, did you like the episode?
Oh, yes. You know what? This is, pardon the pun, a lovely side quest. You know, we get another episode that is sort of standalone. It does add another piece of the puzzle to getting the crew on the way. You know, we found Chakotay, we found Protostar, now we have to make it fly. But along with that, we get some very nice character moments for several of the crew who have been more or less on the sidelines over the past episodes. So it's great to see them, to be front and center.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It's been a while since Rok-Tahk has gotten a focus on her. And it's nice to see her here on center stage doing what she does best, and that is, of course, science.
Yeah.
What about your favorite part?
You know what? This was surprisingly tough to pick. Obviously, Rok being center stage, that's an obvious one. But there were also a lot of little nice touches. You have Dal, being initiative and being supportive. You have Gwyn being her very reasonable and, very litter self. Majel admitting to worrying. She's a Vulcan. Chakotay being seen as a caring commander, making the decisions, ordering orders. Jankum being very encouraging. And then, of course, Bribble turning out to be more than just a cute animal. So there's a lot of little things. There's, surprisingly a lot of stuff going through the entire episode. Very nice.
Absolutely. There's so much to unpack in this one. I think my favorite was Rok regaining her confidence, much in the same way that Dal was regaining his confidence in the last flight of the Protostar. So it was very cool just to see her transform her thinking about, I made an error, to this is a problemtunity, to how cute is this Bribble? This unexpected variable actually was the answer to our problems.
Yeah, exactly. And we do need another plush
what
now.
did you learn?
There's a lot of things to learn. Because I would say several of the characters say very deep things all throughout again. I would pick two, and these are actually quotes. One is from Majel, says, just because an unexpected variable has occurred doesn't mean your abilities are flawed. So just because you made a mistake doesn't mean you have to give up. And another one is the last bit, that's something that Rok records in her log at the very end. And she says, you have to expect the unexpected in my field, science, because before the right answer, you often find the wrong one, but the wrong one can lead us to entirely new discoveries. That's why it's important we don't hang our heads when we make a mistake. And this is, I find, very important because, yes, it's very nice in personal and professional sense, but that's also the approach to science, which is a lot of times folks don't necessarily kind of pick up on. It's, you do science regardless of which field. Your explorations and research might lead you into entirely new fields of study. You never know. So those two things are about the ones that I would take. So what about you?
I had to really narrow it down. And I ended up going with problemtunities because I love that word. It's so perfect. It is. Yeah. What you perceive as a mistake might not be a mistake at all. That's a great, powerful lesson. I cannot wait to discuss all the lessons in our discussion of this episode because there's so many.
I know. Thank you for your answers. And now it's time for this episode's recap.
Okay. So this is written by Keith Sweet II and directed by Sean Bishop. We open to the beautiful visual of hydrogen gas condensing to form a star as Rok-Tahk hosts her own version of Carl Sagan's Cosmos, where she explains their newest mission, collecting bosonite and creating a brand new protostar to power the ship. Our crew beams down to an M-class planet that has a supply of this bosonite, but as soon as they materialize, they know something is amiss. There's only a trace amount of bosonite in the soil, and Chakotay remarks that things seem out of balance. But Dal detects a much more ample supply of bosonite in the mountain range ahead, so off they go. But not before a cute, round, trilling creature catches Rok-Tahk's eye. She identifies it as a Tribble. They're adorable, they're multiplying rapidly, and one of them bites Rok. But how can that be when Tribbles don't have teeth? Maybe these do? They can also be massive, apparently, as a mega-sized Tribble rolls in behind our crew. Run, Chakotay orders. They follow Murph's lead to the edge of a cliff? Yes, because everyone can use his arms to slide down to a secure space just below. Everyone makes it except for Dal, who falls off the cliff but is rescued by Murph, and Zero, who is trampled by the giant Tribble. They're alive, but they need medical attention. Jankum accompanies Zero back to the protostar while the rest of the crew continues hunting for bosonite. Just then, a Klingon comes from somewhere, pointing a phaser pistol at them. He barks out something in a rare Klingon dialect that the universal translator doesn't recognize. Gwyn translates, saying, "Leave this planet or die." The Klingon takes the crew to his cloaked ship, a bird of prey, complete with an unsanitary lab. But despite a fully working ship, the Klingon says he cannot leave. He is Dr. Karuvong, house geneticist for the Empire, tasked with defeating an ancient enemy, the Tribbles. While conducting experiments that slowed their reproductive rate, he accidentally made them stronger, and now he has no honor. Not until he can fix his mistakes. Rok-Tahk can help with that. She points out the error in the Klingon doctor's experiment, which baffles him. She's merely a child, but a child who has studied a lot and is up to date on the Federation's latest Tribble knowledge. She suggests a small adjustment to the serum Dr. Karuvong was working on, which can then spread through the population, thus reducing the Tribble's reproductive rate and size. But that is not their goal, Majel reminds them. The bosonite is. Dr. Karuvong laughs at this in a way that says, good luck. It's in the same location as the Omega Tribble nest. Rok has a different interpretation. This is a problemtunity. They can achieve all of their goals if they release the serum into a Tribble population that large. It's got to be done. Chakotay agrees, and Rok gets to work right away. But the working conditions aren't ideal. The lab is disorganized, and something makes Rok sneeze into a petri dish. Surely this won't cause any problems. On the protostar, hologram Janeway has tried healing Zero's leg, but it isn't responding to treatment. Zero knew their corporeal body wouldn't last forever, but they also thought they would have more time than this. Jankum's bedside manner isn't encouraging, but he does offer a piece of advice. When he encounters something he can't fix, he builds something even better. Perhaps that's what they'll do, together. Back on the planet, Tribbles coo in the background as Majel joins Gwyn outside the bird of prey. Neither of them can sleep due to the high-volume Klingon snoring. This place reminds Gwyn of Solom and the guilt she feels about what might be happening to her people's world in her absence. Majel, too, feels displaced. She is uncertain about why she is here. It's not logical. Gwyn reassures her that life is not always logical, and neither is hope. Many things don't make sense now, but perhaps they will later. Their conversation is interrupted by the screams of Jankum and Rok-Tahk. Something, a Tribble, is on the loose in Dr. Karuvong's lab, leaving it an even bigger mess in its wake. Dal manages to catch it and finds it's not a Tribble. It's a new species with Tribble and Rok-Tahk-like features grown from the sneezed-on petri dish, a Bribble. Gwyn, Majel, and Murph think the creature's adorable, but to Rok, it's living proof of her mistake. She spirals, wondering what other mistakes she has made, but there's no time for that. Reassurance from her crewmates either, or any more unexpected variables. They need to see if Rok's serum works. Outside the nest, serum-infused grain awaits a horde of hungry Tribbles. They don't waste much time feeding on it, and that clears the way for Dal and Gwyn to descend into the cavern from overhead. They work on aligning transport enhancers they brought with them so they can transport the supply of bosonite. Unfortunately, Tribbles went through the grain supply even faster than expected, and with the food gone, the Tribbles returned to the nest. Janeway beams the bosonite to the protocore with no problems, but the Tribbles surround Dal and Gwyn before Janeway can beam them back aboard. Chakotay orders a new plan. Science team, extract the extraction team. They get there just in time, as Dal and Gwyn were struggling in their own escape attempt. That said, Tribbles of all shapes and sizes now surround all of them. It's too much for Dr. Karuvong, and he's ready to ignite a bosonite vein and destroy them all. But just as he shoots his phaser pistol, Rok-Tahk redirects his fire and reminds him there's always another way. That other way is communication between the Tribbles and Rok-Tahk's unexpected variable. The Bribble communicates with them, and the Tribbles retreat. The serum eventually works, and Dr. Karuvong leaves the planet with his reputation mostly intact. Now back on the protostar and equipped with what they need, the crew successfully activates the protocore, and they set a course for Voyager. For home. The end.
Oh, what a lovely episode.
It is. The more that I watch this episode, the more that it grows on me. First time around, I thought, oh, yeah, that's cute. They found a way to make Tribbles central to a story. That's neat. But no. There is so much more here. So how about we just run right into observations?
Absolutely.
Because first things first, like first scene, I have a note. And it's about this beautiful nebula. And I just haven't commented nearly enough about how beautiful nebulas on Prodigy are. They are the most beautiful things. They capture the wonder and the awe of the cosmos, how it's teeming with so much life. And then in this episode, you contrast that with the look of the planet and how it's just so bony and like hollow looking, porous looking even, and beyond starved. And just, wow, once again, kudos our team.
when Jankum actually takes a dig at it, it's like when they're looking at it, and Chakotay's like, something's out of whack here. You know, it's almost the equivalent of like, I have a bad feeling about this. Meanwhile, Jankum's like, can we go to a nice planet for a change? Because let's face it, I mean, so far we've got great visuals, but none of the planets were really, really nice, were they?
Why can't we go anyplace nice? Yeah, so I wanted to make a note on a very subtle thing, but it harkens back to what we were discussing last week, just how that has paid off. Mm-hmm. And that is when Chakotay praises Dal for adjusting his tricorder to find that motherlode of bosonate. Like, that is a great initiative on Dal's part to think. Mm-hmm. And it was great to see Chakotay as the commander, just catching him doing good. You know, it's not always about the commander coming down on you when you need to be back in line. You know, it's like, hey, no, good job. And I think that shows just how solid their bond has become, even in the time since our last episode. Yeah. And it's great.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Well, seeing that this is a Rok episode, we certainly get a lot of science. So that's like one of the main observations, because we get a chock full of it. We get an explanation of how stars are formed. That's gorgeous, beginning to the episode. The explanation of what is required to make protostar work, actually. So what do we require? I mean, Del just kind of said, let's go and build a star. it's not as easy as it sounds, obviously. And then, of course, my favorite
Just build
part,
a star.
or like, being a longtime fan, we know what Tribble is, but we have to have some kind of explanation. So I find it funny. That actually probably is one of the funniest bits in the episode, where Rok is so excited. Her thesis to go into the academy is about the Tribbles. So she's so excited to explain what the Tribbles are, and at the same time describing what an awful thing it is. It's an actual ecological pest that precipitates catastrophes on whole planets. Meanwhile, it's like everything goes well until one of them bites her.
Right, that's where she draws the line. It bit me. How dare? So cute. And yet it brings the Klingon Empire to its knees. So
yeah,
love this so much. Almost. Yes, I want to also make another subtle note about how nobody imposed judgment on Jankum when he wanted off this place. He just was not feeling it. He does not want to deal with these Tribbles. And you know what? He serves just as important of a purpose, helping escort Zero back to the protostar and hanging out and being good company than he would have been on the planet. So that was just nice to see too.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, continuing with the science bit, so obviously we do have Dr. Kruvang. Again, we don't get to see Klingon scientists that often. However, however good he is as a scientist, I mean, he said his lab certainly does not look very well.
Questionable.
But we still get further exposition. We get a little bit of details on genetics. We don't get an explicit explanation what exactly retrovirus is, but through the description of what Rok is trying to do, it's something that they're going to introduce, to something is going to be in the food that will be consumed by Tribbles that will reprogram the DNA, and that's going to affect them. So it's a very rough, but nevertheless, it's an important concept that does show up in Star Trek multiple times with retroviruses and all that. We get nice little things said. Again, this kind of goes back. We get some absolutely wonderful quotes all throughout, and we also get characters quoting other characters. That moment when Gwyn and Majel are having that wonderful heart-to-heart while sitting on top of the bird of prey. Majel actually quotes something that came up in TNG previously. Things are impossible until they're not. That's something that Captain Picard says in When the Bell Breaks.
That's right.
So, not entirely in the same context, obviously, but nevertheless, she said that. I'm like, I already heard that before.
It sounded familiar. Thank you for referencing which episode it actually came from, because I did not go to that effort, but I knew that came from somewhere. It just, I don't know.
There's a moment where Data's trying to fix something, and he says, "I'm afraid it's going to be impossible, sir." And that's when Captain Picard turns around and says, "Well, things are impossible until they're not. Keep working at it."
Love that. That's so perfect for this show. That line.
Yeah, exactly.
Seriously. It was a little sobering to get confirmation of what we kind of knew was lurking in the background, but we had just enough time to stop thinking about it, and that is that Zero's body probably won't last much longer. It cannot heal, and is it all downhill from here?
Wow, it certainly is not looking...
I feel bad for them.
Yeah, it's not looking well, and it's not... It's very sad, and it's sad in such a high drama. No, it's all very subtle, and it makes it that much more heartbreaking. And Zero, of course, being Zero and just completely downplaying the circumstances they found themselves in. Sort of like, that moment when they pull them up for, after being run over by a Tribble, gigantic Tribble, and that quiet thing that, pain is such a horrible novel sensation, conveys incredibly more just how badly they're hurt than if they were started screaming or doing something else. And like the basic resignations, like I thought I'd have more time, even though perhaps other characters might not have been thinking about that, but Zero for sure was fully aware that there is no protection whatsoever once they left the VDF4. Because in that case the planet was protecting Zero and helping with regeneration, helping against injuries. That's it. The moment there's zero protection. It's a very sad pun. Sorry.
Yeah. Zero knew this would be a risk.
I'm actually curious. I mean, if you remember the running of Nazamon, Zero was going at it running. In this case, they're running, behind, in front of the Tribble, and Zero's falling behind, and they can't run as fast as the others. So I'm thinking, I wonder if that's already the sign that the body is less effective and is kind of failing. So
that's
it's
such a good
incredibly.
observation. Maybe
It's
it
very
already is
sad.
breaking down, and this was just the beginning of the inevitable.
Yeah, I mean, to see Zero that frail is just, I don't know. He
The
comes in with a
cane
walking
is what
stick.
broke
It's
my
just,
heart.
yeah, completely, completely.
I'm like,
Um,
Zero.
on the side of things where we are reintroduced, I suppose, to a lot of things that again are throwbacks to things established in our franchise. Klingon, everything about Klingons. We get to see a classic bird of prey. There is, of course, they
Yes.
mentioned that the establishment is like, yes, Klingons, fierce warriors, but the ancient blood enemies are Tribbles, which are kind of cute and cuddly and soft. Nevertheless, here it is. I mean, Chakotay
Right. Arch
actually
enemies.
mentions, yeah, he
Great
mentions,
warriors.
Tribble infestation almost brought Klingon Empire to its knees.
And it's true.
We have a mention of Chancellor Martok, because
That's
apparently
right.
that he's the one who sent Dr. Kruvang to actually find a way of dealing with Tribbles. And then that moment in the end where that's it, the Tribbles recede, Bribble scared them off, talked them off. We don't quite know what exactly they were communicating about.
Right.
But he kind of, like he kneels and he starts singing. I had to look this up. So I was trying to get the subtitles to work. It is actual words that have been seen in Star Trek before. It's a Klingon victory song, or otherwise known as Warrior's Anthem, that shows up first in, again, TNG, Birthright Part 2, and then it also comes up in one of the IKS Gorking novels written by Keith DeCandido. So there is,
Wow.
folks try to translate it. There are, I think, 3 or 4 different versions of how the lyrics can be interpreted, but it's very much
wow.
a part of our part of the canon. I know people hate saying the word canon, but part of the Star Trek franchise. So that was fun thing to do.
Cool.
Like we got such a, yes, very rare thing, a rare bird, a Klingon scientist, but nevertheless, he's as Klingon as they come. So we got the bird of prey, and we got him being kind of a bit of a nasty man, and also singing a victory song. So there we are.
There you go. We're getting the full package.
Yeah.
And we don't get to hear much about Klingon scientists. We always hear about the warriors. So
Yeah.
it was really cool that we got to learn more here about how they serve the Empire. And apparently they are kind of rare, because Chakotay makes that joke. Like, you don't hear that every day.
Yeah. I mean, it's sort
But
of
you
like
have to
we
have
get,
some.
yeah, we get almost, to a degree, stereotypical things, and I'll touch upon that later about something else that Dr. Kruvang does. But it's at the same time, we really don't. I mean, TNG showed probably a couple. I mean, we certainly have B'Elanna, who's a kind of scientist, even though she's
Sure, an engineer.
nevertheless, but she's a great engineer. So yeah, that's not exactly, even though she is the one who says, engineers build empires, not warriors. So
It's all about how you spin it.
Exactly. Regarding the Tribble lore in general, it is such a big part of Star Trek. We do have wonderful references. Very quick one. Again, so blink and you miss it. The food, the grain that they collect, replicate, and spread out, that's the quadritriticale grain, which is introduced in the very first episode in the original series, The Trouble with Tribbles, when we introduced the Tribbles as a concept. And then, of course, when Rok gets so excited, when she's like, oh, that's a Tribble. That's Tribolistius ventricosus, the official scientific name, which is established in short tracks. So that's as recent as it comes in the episode The Trouble with Edward, which was mildly disturbing, but we're talking about Prodigy. Let's not talk about that.
Yeah, okay. And I'm so glad that you said Tribolestus ventricus. Yeah, you got it right the first time. I put that initially in the recap, and I thought, nope, I'm going to stumble on that 5 times over, and I'm not doing it.
I just followed
Thank you
Rok.
for taking
You
that
know
hit.
what? When in doubt, follow Rok.
She is so good at what she does, honestly. Yes. You mentioned Trek lore with Tribbles. I kind of love how modern Trek has been giving us an ample supply of very cute, but also very deadly creatures. We're bringing the Tribbles back, and we're making them even more menacing than they were before. They're getting bigger, and they have teeth, and they'll bite you, and that's terrifying. And they've starved this planet down to its bones. I mean, then you've got Moopsie on lower decks.
Speaking of bone suckers.
The cutest bone sucker around. I mean... We need plushies for all of these. I know that some
please.
are coming, but we need gigantonormous Tribbles now. Maybe they could make beanbag chairs for these Tribbles on steroids. I could definitely go for that. Take my money.
Well, Gwen reminds us again how gifted she is with languages, because,
Yes.
that moment he starts speaking and she's the only one who's like, okay, I got this. Let's not panic. I mean, let's panic because
Yeah.
he's technically, being very dangerous with his disruptor, but nevertheless, she understands. And I'm assuming she's probably the one who kind of talks him down because then in the next scene, you see him leading them to his lab. So that's
Yeah.
all
And
thanks to
thank
Gwen.
goodness, because the
Something
translator couldn't.
I know. The one thing, the kind of, all the science bits, I do have more questions that I would like to know how much Dr. Aaron came up with the ideas or
Mm.
advised. Bosonite, obviously, very obviously, seems to be inspired by the word boson, which is a subatomic particle. I mean, there are multiple kinds of them.
Oh.
They which act as force carriers. One of them, well, Higgs boson, is something that gives rise to phenomenon of a mass, and in this case, it kind of fits, I suppose. We are looking for high energy source, something with, I don't know, the mass of a protostar. I'm talking completely out of my depth here, but I would like to know who came up with the name and. Just generally, the idea behind it, because this is, I absolutely love when we have this real life science thrown in and it works within the context of the story.
It definitely sounds like something that was inspired by not just real science, but also by Dr. Aaron. And we are going to have her back with all of the scientific questions like this one, because it's a great question. And I think you mentioned a couple weeks ago how there was bonus content in season 1. All right, for season 2, it's not too late to do this. Like, I really, really need to see a version of Cosmos hosted by Rok-Tahk and Dr. Aaron, Prodigy style, informing us of all sorts of stellar phenomenon and all these terms, and taking us through the galaxy and just exploring all sorts of wonderful things for us. And I mean, man, I'd watch that over and over and over.
Absolutely. It's fun. And I mean, well, Rok-Tahk is adorable, but Dr. Aaron makes science fun. So I think that totally would work.
They're a perfect pairing.
Yeah. Thinking of other throwbacks that we have a wonderful little throwback to Time Amok, which again is considered to be probably one of the best Star Trek, Star Trek episodes that we've ever had. Very unexpectedly so in the middle of season 1 when Rok gets stuck for a rather long time and basically teaches herself as much science as she can. But it comes up in the discussion when Chakotay has never seen Rok in action so far.
Right.
So she has been sort of on sidelines. So he doesn't know how she works the problem. And Del explains like, you want somebody to solve a problem? She's the one. So it's a lovely, because he's like, she stopped the warp core breach and rebuilt hologram Janeway all in one go. So she's the one to go to. That was a lovely throwback.
Yeah, it was great that Dal so concisely threw something that big at Chakotay, but also Chakotay, being the commander, is going to trust but verify that yes, she can do this job, because there's no room really for. I mean, there was some failure in a way, but. No, at the same time.
But he is being a commanding officer that tries to make commanding decisions, important decisions, with the best amount of information that he has. So it's his job to kind of like get all that information and then make the decisions based on that. Right? It kind of made sense. Like, I've never seen Rok actually do her thing. Can she handle it? Oh, yes, she can.
Yeah. Once again, like the commander. That is Chakotay, back in fine form. He's just getting better and better. You mentioned Time Amok from season 1. I made a note about the veterinary holo program that Rok-Tahk had that she was playing all the time, because the Bribble reminds me so much of GLITTERSMOOCH, which I adore. True. The name and the creature.
It is. What a delight. I mean, speaking of plushes, I mean, we have to have a Bribble plush now. It's very... I find it absolutely sweet that out of all of them, okay, so Rok was obviously frustrated because she didn't like Bribble very much in the beginning, but out of all of them, it's actually Dal who names it Bribble, and it's a perfect name because it's a baby Tribble, but at the same time it is part Bricarian, so it's like Bribble. Whoever came up with the name, great job. And Kudos. Of course, at the end of the episode, Rok is also she just can't resist. It's far too cute.
Oh, come on. Yeah.
Now, let me ask you something. So they get down to
Yeah.
this planet, and the planet, you have all these rocks and things, and then you have the giant round tribbles, and you have seemingly, creatures that are supposed to be very non-threatening, but they end up with having sharp teeth. And you're also in a situation where you have to find high energy source. This gave me such Galaxy Quest vibes at the very beginning. I mean, before the story took off in a completely different direction. But my first one was like round things, sharp teeth, energy. We're not looking for beryllium spheres, but close enough. And so
Oh my
it kind of
gosh.
just
I
hit
didn't
me.
think about that. That's genius. I would love to know if the Galaxy Quest did inspire parts of this.
It could be just, it could be just a
It could be
coincidence.
coincidence, but
Yeah,
it also
just-
could have been inspired.
all these images just combined and made me think of Galaxy, the rock monster planet that they go on.
Absolutely.
And something to kind of finish my observations with, and it's, a little side thing for us, mutually JC shippers. The very end,
Yes,
Chakotay
yes.
is asking, like, are you ready to go see the Admiral? And he says, I am now. Let's set a course for home. And of course,
home being Janeway and Voyager.
Well, that's the first thing, and the second one, the word "set," of course, for home, of course, very important for those who are Voyager fans. They will recognize it.
Of
They
course.
happen to be the last line spoken by Captain Janeway in both the Voyager pilot and the Voyager finale. Set the course for home. That's like the key thing about Voyager. So I love how we got all these little bits. I don't know, just come together and give us an incredible episode with a lot of things happening. I didn't think at first that there would be so much with, yet another Tribble episode.
Yeah, well, yeah, the more you dig into this episode, the more
Yeah.
it has to offer. So how about we dive into the discussion now?
Mhm.
Because
Yeah.
we got loads more to talk about there. So how about you kick us off?
Well, one thing that I've really enjoyed seeing, and this is obviously has been consistently happening because the whole idea we're seeing our crew grow and develop. Both Dal and Gwyn, who have been, the two main characters having major issues, they come across more mature in this episode. And it's done in little touches. It's not like, something epic happening. No, Dal taking initiative with the sensors. Then he's the one who has the presence of mind to grab the pattern enhancers so they're not crushed by the tribbles. Then you have Gwyn, who's being, she's very supportive of Majel. She's the one, discussion with Chakotay is like, well, technically speaking, we came here for Bosanite. We don't want to be dealing with the Klingons. We don't want to be dealing with the tribbles. But we have to clear the nest anyway. Otherwise, you can't get to Bosanite. And
Right.
goodness forbid any single one of those tribbles get off the planet, it will be a problem for literally everyone because this is ecological disaster on planetary scale. So, Gwyn is being like, it's not like we have necessarily a directive here, but we should take care of this along with everything else.
Right. We can nip it in the bud right now. And that is better than the consequences we could leave behind. Yeah, that's such a
Absolutely.
great observation that they both really are. They're taking charge in their own way. They are guiding others in their own way, being real leaders.
They're growing up. They
are. They really are.
Something that I found a surprisingly tender moment. And, so you already mentioned, so Jankum is being, he's being a Tellarite, who he himself admits is like, Tellarites have terrible bedside manners. Nevertheless,
He also very self-aware.
but he has such a delightful pairing with Zero, where they're both sitting there in sickbay, and Zero is so dejected. Nevertheless, he still tries to cheer him up, as horrible as some of the things that he's saying. He's like, yeah, it could be worse. Probably not. And Zero responds. So Zero wants, he's like, please don't go. And he likes his company.
Yeah.
So this was a lovely, lovely friendship that you would think like they're so different. But, nevertheless, here they are.
Yeah, and they're helping each other out. And I love the tender moment that they end on of basically there's like this promise that they're going to work on something together to help Zero out. That's just fantastic.
I mean, I suppose saying building something better may imply that Jankum might try and help Zero in some way, seeing how his physical body is failing. So we shall see. We shall see.
Yeah.
Now, again, something we already mentioned, that wonderful discussion that Gwyn and Magella are having instead of sleeping. And it's pretty deep. I mean, they're both worried. They admit to worrying, but they're worried about different things and they're worried in their own ways. So on one hand, you have, of course, Gwyn, who keeps saying, like, it's not easy to see broken worlds. and she's thinking about Solom and everything else. That implies with her being displaced, lest we forget, she's still hanging on there, between phases. While Majel, is, yes, she's Vulcan, but she also very candid. She's like, yeah, Vulcans do not express emotions, but we do feel, and I feel displaced and I feel guilty. She dropped everything seemingly on a whim, from, I suppose, a Vulcan standpoint, to drop everything on Voyager, join the Rok-Tahk group based on what this, supernatural almost, entity, what Wesley
crazy
said.
Guy.
And where is the logic in doing all that? And of course, Gwyn says, because path is not clear now, doesn't mean you'll never find your purpose. So this was a wonderful conversation. Again, they have, I suppose, friendship growing between the two of them.
Yeah, it was a great moment to see that, one, it's a really deep conversation that the two are having. Like, they just get right into it. They open up right away, which is awesome to see. And it's also a nice mirror from last episode where Chakotay and Dal have their moment. Well, now the ladies get to have their turn.
And it's nice to see specifically Majel, because, she's the one, it's not Gwyn joining her, as she's joining Gwyn. It's like she needs to talk to somebody.
Yeah, Majel does.
A wonderful thing that I thought that was shown is that, again, sort of like this contrast, the difference in the way Rok is treated when, this accident, it's really an accident, happens. You have our team who are very, very supportive. Like, you're smart as you were yesterday. I was like, oh, who'd have thought the contaminated culture cell could be so cute? Versus, Dr. Kruvang, who, and this I did find very stereotypical, because you would think, Klingon or not, he is a scientist. He should have a more open mind. Nevertheless, it's an immediate dismissal once she screws up. It's like, oh, my faith in her abilities is limited. She created an abomination, which kind of parallels to what happens at the end when they're attacked by the Tribbles. And, our crew is trying to exhaust all possibilities. There's always another way, versus him trying to explode the bosonite vein and take all his enemies with him. So this was a nice contrast.
Certainly. It's also reflective of, like, grumpy Chakotay a couple of episodes ago. This guy is just like,
that's right.
Nope, it ain't gonna happen. Something about being stranded and alone just really does something to a person. And once again, there's always another way, and never give up. The running theme of our whole season, our show, it's here, just evergreen. I think we just need to keep that permanent in the context of the show.
It's nice that we get, like, different twists to it, depending on which context and which character it happens to happen to.
This is true. Everybody's taking turns.
Exactly. And they learning kind of like it's the same lesson in a way, but again with a different twist every time. I love the fact that Rok, even though yes, she is devastated, she is embarrassed, she doesn't want to see Tribble. When things come to this whole thing, the confrontation with the Tribbles, and Rok is like, no, my team comes first, we'll deal with my mistakes later. So she's also grown up and learned her things. She's not leading the team.
Yep. Yeah, we see that plenty of times, and now it's her turn to say those words. Yeah, we're round-robining our eternal themes, which is great. And here's another example of Dal showing good leadership. He reminds Rok that he, too, is a hybrid developed in a lab. Is he a mistake? Yeah. There were times in season 1, especially, where he certainly felt that way, but he's come around a lot since then.
Yeah. I love how just before he says that, Majel kind of interjects and says, like, wow, what a fascinating error. And I suppose Vulcans probably wouldn't care, in either way. But yeah, the what Dal says is very important.
Just lift the eyebrow. Oh, fascinating. Yeah, there's so much to unpack with Rok's story in particular, and just the lessons we can get out of that. And one big one I got out of it was how we learn more from failure than we do success. Rok even says toward the end of the episode, we often find the wrong answer before we find the right one. Well, if you think about how science has progressed over time, and how certain scientists had to try however many times to get electricity or invent the telephone or other massive milestones of technology that we have today that we don't even think about and take for granted, but somebody worked really hard to make that possible.
Yeah, so some things are accidents. If you think, most people are driving these days, especially, well, depending where you are in the world, of course, but, say East Coast of the United States. Vulcanized rubber was an accident. quite literally. He was dumb. So you never know what you're going to discover.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And, science has like good accidents and bad accidents. Sometimes things end up dark and tragic. And then other times it's kind of like a more happy accident where it's a problemtunity where if Rok had not created the Bribble, what would have happened? Would they have gotten out of that situation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's actually a miscalculation actually saved them.
Exactly.
That was the whole solution where, Bribble is the reason where it's like, oh, it's not just a cute, six-legged thing. No, it actually has some kind of intelligence, I suppose, because unexpectedly they're the ones. The Bribble is the one to open the line of communication to the Tribbles, and it stops the whole situation fully.
Right. Without that problemtunity, I don't know where we would be. And this, I love that word. Problemtunity. If I have to sum up the episode with any one thing, it's probably this word. I mean, life always throws unexpected variables our way, and we can't always control that, but we can't control how we respond. And so Rok's journey in this episode is such a great reflection of that, where it's sort of initially like anger and dismissal. She despises the Bribble, does not want anything to do with it, like you said. And then realizes, you know what? This is a whole new life form. This is fascinating. I can study and learn. And honestly, this is a reminder to me too of IDIC. Infinite diversity and infinite combinations. This is just a new combination, and who knows what a Bribble will do. This is amazing.
All right, we should probably wrap up at this point because, I mean, we kind of covered all the main ones.
Yes. We have a very full episode out of this one.
I'm telling you, I'm like, that's going to be very straightforward, but it was much deeper than that.
All right. Well, again, let's get it before we leave.
Yeah. So, perhaps in view of other outings that we've had with Tribbles in other Star Trek incarnations, one might have expected to have a very lighthearted approach, because if you think about it, pretty much every time we had Tribbles show up somewhere, there would be a comedy in an episode. But I really like the fact that in this case, the situation with Tribbles was treated very seriously. Again, even when they're fluffy, seemingly non-threatening themselves, they already are walking, well, rather crawling, whatever the Tribbles do.
Rolling.
Ecological catastrophe coming. In this case, it's even worse. And then it's, we sort of like we keep getting over the last episodes, like a little bump up, a little leveling up for all the characters in, getting some pretty great, character growth and learning various lessons. Of course, we also get, and I suppose even though it is a sort of standalone, but we do get another check mark, another item on the list of let's save prime time timeline to-do list. We found Chakotay, we found Protostar, we fixed Protostar, we can now fly, and now the next item is we have to return to Voyager 8. So
we're doing
it soon.
Yes, and I think Chakotay is so ready to see Janeway at this point. He's so excited. I love the look on his face in that very last shot. The more I watch this episode, the more it grows on me. It's sort of like the size of the Tribbles on this planet. Like it just gets getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think a lot of it is because of Rok-Tahk. Simply because she's mostly been working in the background this season, and this was so overdue to give her some big moments, and this more than delivers. And it's so rewarding, it's so satisfying, really moves the story along, even if it is not a two-parter, which we've had a lot of lately. And hey, look, they were absolute bangers, but so is this episode. And I did not have Tribbles on my Prodigy Season 2 bingo card. So this was a little bit of a surprise when that came around first time in the watch. And it was a lot of fun while not skimping it the least with our morals, meanings, messages. I mean, this is 10 out of 10. Solid episode all around, if you ask me.
Agreed.
Well, okay, we've reached the end of our show, but before we go, you know what? We've got that one last thing to do now, and that is to give you the special code that you will need to enter our giveaway. And of course, once again, a reminder, it's only here. So your code this week is GLITTERSMOOCH, because I got to pick it. GLITTERSMOOCH. Glitter Smooch. You
I
go
love it.
enter the link provided in the description of the episode or look for it on our social media channels. And you can also find our giveaway video on the Roddenberry Entertainment YouTube channel, especially if you haven't learned yet about the kind of prizes that you could win. All the info is there. Go enter that code, get yourself some entries, and you just never know, you might be a winner.
That's right. So thank you everyone for joining us here on Mission Log Prodigy. If you enjoyed our show, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe to our Mission Log Prodigy playlist on the Roddenberry Entertainment YouTube channel, or find us on your podcast catcher of choice. Mission Log Prodigy is produced by Roddenberry Entertainment, production and technical direction by Earl Green. Our website and your opportunity to comment and connect with us is missionlogpodcast.com. And if you'd like to support Mission Log directly, you can do so at patreon.com/missionlog.
Next week, we will take a look into Cracked Mirror. And cadets, don't forget to watch that episode and send us your thoughts no later than Saturday, October 5th. We can't wait to hear what you have to say about that. But for now, let's hear what you had to say about a Tribble Called Quest.
Receiving listener communications. Message playback begins.
All right, what's your name and your age?
My name is Rook and my age is 9.
Rook, did you like the episode?
I did.
What was your favorite part of the episode?
My favorite part of the episode was when they saw the blibble.
Oh yeah, I like that too. What did you learn from the episode?
I learned from the episodes to complete, you have to make mistakes.
Yeah, sometimes you gotta mess up to figure out what the right way to do it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good job.
What is your name?
James?
Did you like the episode?
Yes.
What was your favorite part?
My favorite part was when the giant tribbles start chasing them.
And what did you learn?
Never to mess around with DNA.
This is a Roddenberry podcast. For more great podcasts, visit podcast.roddenberry.com.